Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Institute's Leading Edge Crossroads podcast, where we examine the decisions that professionals make that define careers, that shape industries, that inspire thought leadership, and ultimately build lasting legacies. I'm Kent Bullard, and I'm joined here with my esteemed colleague, Michael Hertzberg-Smith. And today we're privileged to be speaking with Brian Bates of EAS Tire and Auto. You're the president there, out of Denver. Today's guest, Brian Bates, is a proud fourth-generation Colorado native and an accomplished entrepreneur with a rich history of service and dedication. After graduating from Golden High School in 1991, Brian followed his family's tradition of military service, joining the Army and serving honorably until 1996. During this time in Germany, he and his wife, Rondi, welcomed their son, the first of two children who would become your greatest pride, right?
Right.
Brian transitioned into the automotive industry, balancing work as a technician at Planet Honda and earning a degree in business management from Metro State University of Denver in 2000. With an ASC L1 Master Technician certification and an AAM designation, he quickly rose to prominence in the field. In 2004, he took the leap to entrepreneurship, opening his first shop in Columbine Hills. Today, he is the owner of 12 thriving shops and a founding partner of Straightaway Tire and Auto, formed in 2023 with Michael Smith's help and alongside four of your closest friends. Recognized for your excellence, Brian's shops were awarded the #1 Napa Auto Care Center in the nation in 2018. Beyond his professional success, he treasures his roles as a family man, recently celebrating the birth of his first grandchild, Tatum Duke, in October 2024. When not working, Brian enjoys snow skiing, boating, wakeboarding, and four-wheeling, embodying the adventurous spirit of his Colorado roots. We're thrilled to have Brian Bates share his remarkable journey and insights with us today on the Institute's Leading Edge Crossroads podcast. Welcome, Brian.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Kent. Good seeing you again, Michael.
You too, my friend.
I love it. Listeners, as we go through the topics today, the shared experience from Brian, if you have any questions or comments about this content, please go down in the comments and ask your questions. That's the whole point of this podcast. We also ask, if you do enjoy what you hear, please like and share so that others can benefit from this conversation as well. And of course, you can find more information about the Institute at wearetheinstitute.com. So Brian, I want to start off, what originally drew you into the industry and what inspired you to commit to it?
Well, the first thing that drew me to the industry was the opportunity to provide for my family after getting out of the military. And while I was going to pursue my degree at Metro State, the idea that I could make decent money and work during the day was very inviting at the time. Most of my options were in the restaurant industry or some, retail industry that, would be odd hours, odd days, that sort of thing. So that was the original draw. And then after being in it for a few years, I was just really drawn by the people, the customers, the ownership of the dealership, the store manager, my colleagues that I was working with on a day-to-day basis, and just really had a good time working and in the trenches and just doing all the rolling up the sleeves, getting dirty, and feeling at the end of the day like I'd really accomplished something, and watching my pay increase as my knowledge increased, and being able to invest in myself with technical expertise, with experience, the challenge of figuring out what's going on with a car or beating flat rate time and making more money as a result. So and again, working with other people, and as I grew in the dealership, I became a mentor and had several apprentices working for me throughout the years. And that was also rewarding and exciting to see them grow and to be able to share my knowledge with them and help them experience the same sort of success that I was able to, and the same opportunities that I was able to as I got into the industry. So that was my initial draw to the industry, and then it just kind of took off from there.
Well, you had a positive mentor relationship at the dealership, if I remember the original stories. Could you tell us a little bit about that positive mentor in your life and how it kind of got you started in kind of a thought process about how to be in this industry?
Yeah. So it really was an unintentional situation, but I just can't think of a better luck of the draw or a better situation just by, happenstance for me or anybody in any industry, really. I was going to school, getting my degree, going to night school mostly. I had some day classes, but most of them were night. And so as I moved up in the ranks, I was able to really utilize a lot of that knowledge that I was learning at the dealer or at school at the dealership as I was working on it, especially since I was getting a degree in management, which is mainly people. Once I realized that my a degree in management wasn't all about accounting and spreadsheets and crunching numbers and whatnot. And I realized that it was all about leadership and organizational behavior, motivating people and all those fun things that we kind of talk about on a daily basis. That's what really gave me a passion for getting a degree in management. And so I was fortunate to have the dealership, the service manager at the dealership who ended up being the fixed operation manager as the dealership grew. He was very passionate about leadership and just about the industry and mentoring and helping people. And so as I was learning all the stuff that I was learning at school, I was able to really talk with him and have that second sort of education and mentorship that was the application of the knowledge. Knowledge isn't power. The application of the knowledge is really where the power comes in. And so the ability to really apply all that knowledge as I was growing and learning and working at the dealership, and then to multiply that with a mentor that really could help me make sense of what to do in certain situations and kind of how the world works and how to, like you said, Michael, how to be and the important things about just work in general, but especially the automotive industry. That was that was just so powerful in my career that like I said, I just can't imagine that I could have been in a better situation than that.
So many of us have these leadership experiences where we get into being leaders ourselves, and we look back and, well, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. And oh my gosh, when I'm a leader, I'm not going to do that. And I'm just pleased. You and I have known each other for quite a while, and I know how that mentor meant a lot to you and how you were able to walk out of that experience with those memories and with those perspectives, and to some extent have it be a little bit of your leadership foundation as you came out into your own. And I loved it. That's why I just asked. I know that's, to have a positive start like that's a great building block start, right? So
We've been
absolutely,
we've been having kind of this internal conversation outside the podcast. I mean, today about application, and I'm curious to know, what do you think was the driving factor or the inspiration for you to take what you were learning and to apply it? What got you to apply that knowledge?
Well, a little bit of it was just being forced into, they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? So I think it's the same about the application of knowledge is the necessity of it. But, I started at the dealership just ripping plastic off of new vehicles and getting them ready for the front line, and which is really as far as the service department, that's about the entryest level, if that's a word, in the dealership. And so went from there to being, they started letting me work on vehicles, and then worked my way into a line technician position. And then eventually, after a couple of years, I was a team leader. And then after a few more years, I moved into a shop foreman position. So it again just kind of followed in line with where I was at school. After getting through my general studies, after a couple of years, I was actually moving into that leadership position and taking some of those basic management classes. And I also, while I was in the military, I was a sergeant, so had taken quite a bit of leadership classes in the military as well. So wasn't a stranger to leadership at all. But it just, continued on as I was going into management, and, a lot of that real instinctive leadership that you have in the military, which really is, a lot of self-preservation based and based on, the preservation of your colleagues and the people beside you and above you, and, that you're serving. So, all of that again just is that building upon a foundation upon another foundation, that really got me to the point where I was applying what I learned. And again, my passion, people, probably not so much recently, just because I've seen more as the business owner versus the car guy. But a lot of people used to ask me, hey, what kind of cars do you have? What cars do you love? What do you love about working on cars? And I mean, the answer to that is, honestly, I really don't have a passion to work on cars. That was just what gave me a ticket to the dance, was that I could work on cars and make money. And while I was mastering and learning more about how to run the shop, how to lead people, how to be, the best leader and the kind of leader that that people will follow, and that I can inspire other people to follow the purpose and the drive and where we're going as a company, and where I'm wanting to go as an individual in this field, in it being my career, is that is all dependent on helping other people get where they want to go, right? I mean, this isn't, I think some people feel like being in business or being a business owner is that everybody serves your whim, and that the business is there to serve your lifestyle. And I don't agree with that. I think that the purpose of being a business owner is that you have the ability to really have a significant impact on other people's lives and to help them get where they want to go. And the more you're able to do that at a higher level and at a larger scale, then then you benefit from it, right? But that's a result. That's not the purpose. It's a a benefit or a result of what you're doing, and the purpose really is that you're helping other people get where they want to go, so that you can get where you want to go, and that's where you move from being a rank and file person to being a leader, is that you're dependent on the results of the people that are on your team, right? The people you serve, people that you're saying, hey, I'm here to remove obstacles out of your way so that you can do what you want to, or what you're looking to do, that I can help you get where you want to go, right? Versus, hey, I need you to do these items so that I can elevate myself to the next position or to a higher level. I mean, I think that's really old school thinking. So
I'm curious to know, going back to the early days, was it a consistent cycle of learning, applying, and then seeing the results, learn, apply, result? Or were there key moments in the beginning part of your journey that got you focused on, like, memories that's like, I distinctly remember this happened and I was like, I want to pursue management, or I want to pursue leadership?
So, that's a pretty loaded question, right? Because what's going through my mind is, and I say loaded meaning complex, right? Is that what's going through my mind is that there, in my experience, there's that process, but it's not one dimensional. It's multidimensional. When you're thinking about, as a father, you go through that. Where do I want to be? How am I going to get there? Here's the plan, execute. Then, what are the results? And that can be in several different aspects, just in as being a father, or, in your financial, knowledge, and in your career. And, Michael Smith does a a great exercise in one of his leadership classes about the wheel of life, and there's all those spokes in the wheel of life. And so I think that's it. That cycle is, like I said, just multi-layer, multi-dimensional, and each one is kind of at a different phase at any given time. As far as my career goes, I think again that there's different things that kind of that I look at. Hey, this is where I want to be. Maybe that could be, one layer would be pay, another layer would be, where I am as a technician, my skill level as a technician, where I am in the company as far as the level of my position, right, compared to other people in the company. So, to answer your question, as far as my career, I think that it was something that just kind of started building on itself, right? And John Maxwell talks about this in one of his books. I think probably several of his books. A lot of them have the same theme, but they that at some point, I think in our careers, we go from this point of like, how far do I have to go? How much work do I have to do to attain success? And then that's kind of that input of energy, right? And you're kind of feeling like you're exhausted, and there's times where you might feel like giving up, or you might have to take a break, that sort of thing. And that to me is that input of energy. You're constantly putting a ton of energy in. And in my career, at least, at some point those scales sort of tipped, where you get more energy out of it than what you're putting into it, and you move to this, instead of how much do I have to do in order to reach success, I'm thinking, how far can I take this? And just, those victories give you more energy, and you start really, you wake up saying, hey, look, you're excited to go to work. I had a friend, I was at the gym, and I told him, hey, I've got a hard stop. I think it was 6:30. I had to leave. And he goes, oh, do you have to go to work at that time? And I just looked at him and said, no, I get to go to work. Like, I'm excited. I have a hard stop because I got to get this, this project going, and I'm excited to get there. And no, I don't have to. I have the opportunity and the privilege to go do this. So, but it's not always like that. And so over time, I just felt like I could see that energy and the return on my investment just start to kind of build sort of the snowball. And then it started, I started getting like that glimpse of, hey, look, this is kind of fun. There's a lot of pain involved, but every once in a while something's fun, right? And then over time, it's like, this is about half pain, half fun. And then at this point in my career, I think is there's some moments of stress or frustration, but by large, just a lot of fun and excitement, and something that, again, I wake up and I'm excited to get in and get going on the day and see what the day has in store for me.
I'm somewhat a little relieved that you have the same thoughts that a lot of us do, in that, wow, today sucks a little bit and it's going to be hard and it's challenging. And, you talked about the thought of giving up and the thought of, maybe I need to take a break. But also I think I can appreciate that you more so have this continuous iterative process of how am I continually moving forward or getting better until you hit that tipping point. And I want to talk about what that looked like for you a little later on when you did hit that tipping point. What did it feel like? What did it look like? But more so, I'm curious to go back to, again, the struggle. So when you first started your business, what were some of the most challenging obstacles that you faced? And what do you think you did that helped you overcome those challenges?
Well, I'd say by far the largest challenge or obstacle that I faced was myself. I mean, and I say that because if I knew now, or back then what I know now, then I feel like I could have accomplished a ton more, a ton faster. Um, so my frustrations were largely surrounded by people, because that's the biggest challenge. I feel like most people in this industry, and I feel like just in business in general, right? When you're in the people business, some people are, in say the aeronautics business, or, engineering, or, you know, um, most business does serve people in some sort of capacity, but I feel like the automotive industry is largely there to serve people, right? That's really the focus, and people that understand that people are the focus. It's not cars. We fix cars as um, as part of our job. That's what we do, but really the focus is people, and that's our job, is to serve our customers, to serve the community, to serve our team members, because in the end, the further they get in life, and the further we can help them accomplish what they're looking to accomplish, whether it's to have a reliable vehicle that they can depend on without breaking the bank, and a place they can trust, or whether it's a place they can go to work and earn a good living and reach the potential that they deserve in life. Um, that's really what the fact that when I said earlier that fixing cars just gave me a ticket to the dance, the dance is the people. Fixing cars is not the dance. If you can fix the cars, then then you get to play out on the playground with everyone else. But if you can't fix cars, or if you can't work well and sell, be a good advisor on the front counter, be a good manager, that sort of thing, then you don't get to play in where all the action is. So, what was your question again?
So just for fun, I'll build on this. When I met you many years ago, you had 3 stores and you had 4 leaders around you. One was kind of a general manager, and there were 3 store managers. And you were talking before about, gee, if I knew then what I know now, right? Those guys didn't really like each other, and they didn't work very well together, and there wasn't a lot of teamwork going on, and they kind of had different agendas, and you tried to go help, and they did their own thing after you left, and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Just for fun, looking back, knowing now what you know years later, because there would be a lot of people that may be listening to this that are living the life now that I'm just described that you were living then. What would you have taken back and from today to that time to start with? What were the things that you've learned that would have been useful then, when it was a little messy with leadership and the people around you?
I would say the biggest thing that I learned was the power of having purpose, being principle based, having values as a company, operating principles, and how powerful that is to attract the sort of people that aren't dysfunctional, like what you talked about, Michael. I'd love to tell that story about how you and I met. If
yeah,
that's
just
okay.
Fine. You go for it.
Well, we, Michael and I met, just kind of make a long story short, he was an advisor that was helping consult with a group of other people, and I really needed to understand how to increase revenue and increase profitability, all those things that most business owners think about to some degree or another, right? I mean, you can't do this if you don't have the revenue and the expense structure figured out. And Michael was one of the first people to talk to me, and he said, "Hey, look, you really need to get your mission, your purpose put together, and really work on your culture of the business. Whether or not it's fairly dysfunctional and it's creating a lot of problems and obstacles in your business." And I said, "Yeah, I get that. Let me figure out how to sell more work first, and then generate that revenue, and then we'll get to the culture thing later." And so we Michael was very persistent and said, "Hey, are you ready to start working on your culture and really, taking your business to the next level?" And as I started really analyzing what was going on in my business, I started realizing that it was all my frustrations were born out of just problems in the culture, and the culture was being dictated by some of the people that I hired. And I was definitely never denied that the culture was all mine. I owned it, good and bad. And so I finally succumbed to Michael's suggestions of, hey, let's work on it, I said, yeah, you know what, you're right, Michael, let's work on this. And we just started creating a vision for the company that created a vacuum and drew people into this idea that we created. And I created it with the help of Michael and in collaboration with the rest of the team that was there at the time, and anybody that we hired afterwards. We were very clear that, hey, this is who we are as a company, and these are the values that we hold important, and this is our purpose as a company, and this is the mission that we're on. And if you're excited about that, I think you'll fit really well into the team. If you're not, then I wouldn't accept a position here, right? Because we just know it's better off to, if people don't believe in teamwork or growth or being a servant to other people, or being a professional in this industry, those are 4 core values, then they probably won't work out. Those are the things that some of those people that were dysfunctional when Michael and I met, those are the people that didn't work out, and it's because they didn't have those values. They didn't believe in teamwork. Like Michael said, they were backstabbing each other, and they didn't believe in growing and being professional and really caring about their customers and their teammates and the vendors, and really serving them, and understanding that the result of increased revenue, or revenue in general, is a result of how well you serve people and care about them, versus saying, hey, let's manipulate people in order to generate revenue, which is very short-sighted and lacks a ton of integrity, right? Has a bunch of problems associated with that. So Michael, I remember you asked me when we first started out, hey, what do you want to be doing in 2 years? And I said, well, I want to, this was 2018. I said, well, I want to either build the company up to a place where I can sell it and get out of the industry, because I was pretty burnt out. Or I said, I want to either be having fun and ready to continue to grow this business to the highest, potential that I can. And the more we got into it, the more I realized they were really one and the same, right? Businesses that are very attractive have great cultures. They have high revenue. They're fun. They're functional, meaning that they're not passive aggressive. They're active and collaborative, and they feed. They get energy from the business itself. And once I figured out all the components that go into that, and much the same as kind of seeing that glimpse of leadership, and there's a lot of pain and a little bit of, hey, that was fun, I want to do it again. The same thing happened with the business over the years, and then it became something that over the next 2 years that Michael helped me build to the point where we were saying, hey, look, this is a lot of fun. Let's, we're building something special here. And we could see people being drawn to the business and just kind of jumping on our crusade and saying, hey, we're going to build something special here. And we made some predictions that were very bold. I believe we said we were going to get to 10 stores by 2025. We're at actually that bio is just about a year outdated. We've got 14 stores right now. We're under LOI for another 7 locations that will close by the end of probably the middle of January, and then we've got 2 more locations that we've got lined up for probably a February close. So we'll be somewhere around 23, 24 stores here by the end of the second or the first quarter in 2025, and I think we predicted 25 stores by 2030 was in our mission statement.
And that felt big at the time. Remember, that was like, wow, that's just so big and so far out.
It doesn't seem like it was a big enough goal.
Little did you know.
Well, no, it wasn't. And the funny part about it was everybody thought we were just crazy. They're just, and as those that had a little bit of faith started seeing, oh, wow, this is really, moving in the right direction. And then we started acquiring a couple stores, and then, there was another store. People work for opportunity. They need money, right? They want to be paid fairly, but the main reason, especially the rock stars and unicorns, are on your team is for the opportunity to see that, hey, I've got the opportunity to compete for a position or to grow within the company based on my merits. They don't, rock stars and unicorns don't expect entitlement, but they do expect to be paid for their talent and their efforts. And that involves having the opportunity to do that, right? I mean, if all we have is a position as a GS and there's a master tech that wants to join our team, if there's not that opportunity, then he's not going to join our team, right? But, if that master tech position is available and they say, hey, I want to move into management and, maybe being an area manager and learning the ropes here and possibly starting my own business. And if that opportunity is there and they see it, then they want to be on your team. If they see that, hey, this shop has been a 3-bay shop for the last 50 years and no sign of growing, no potential, then, you could pay them what they're looking to make, but the true unicorns aren't going to want to work there.
Well, one of my favorite stories that you've told is that when you guys bought a shutdown building and you put your brand on the front while you were getting ready to launch, you started taking proactive phone calls from masters that were driving back and forth on their way to work. They saw the sign, you guys had your reputation in the market, and that they'd call and say, hey, I'm a master tech, I'm a master service advisor, I'm a top-end store manager, and when you guys start interviewing, I want to be on the list. And it's such an interesting story because the industry is like, well, how are we going to find good talent? And it's like, well, if you set this up right, all they have to do is drive by the sign. Right? It's just an interesting, result that you guys have experienced. So
yeah, no, it does feed on itself, and that is one of the, we have a little over 100 employees or team members right now, and when we get done with this acquisition of 7 locations, we'll have somewhere around 150, and it's a big question. Hey, I've got 6 people in my store, and it's extremely challenging to keep my store staffed. How do you do it with 150? And to me, it's relative that the larger you grow, the more opportunity is there. And so you do attract, if your culture is right, you do attract the right kind of people. Now, there's other stores that, we probably all know of, a group, a chain of stores or something where they're a large organization and they're struggling to keep good team members, and their bays are empty, the parking lot's empty, that sort of thing. And it does work both ways, right? It's not a given that if you just scale your company that, people are going to be attracted to you. You still have to do the work, right?
You have to scale it the right way. You have to scale it the right way. Absolutely.
So I want to go back a little bit. Because you talked about the people that are saying, well, I've got the 3-bay shop. This is where I'm at. At what point in your journey did you hit that crossroad? You see, I got the title.
Oh, you got the crossroad
podcast in there. Yeah. When did you hit that crossroad when you considered a future beyond the current business you had?
So the question being, when I was just at a single store and I considered a business
Something
beyond
bigger
that.
than just the single location.
Yeah. When did you decide to go big?
Right.
What happened? Right. Like, yeah.
That was a matter of just realizing that I had people on my team that had bigger ambitions than to just work at a single location. Our first location was a 4-bay converted gas station. Had been a 2-bay gas station. The owner before me had added on a couple more lifts or a couple more bays. And I realized that if I didn't give more opportunities, I was going to lose people, and it was just going to be difficult to hold on to good, solid people. So I found another store that had closed down during the 2008 recession, and we signed a lease on that building and started hiring more people. And the people that were at the first location, they were very excited that we were growing. I realized that our customers, something that I didn't expect, but the customers were really excited to see us growing too. People like doing business with a winning team, and so when they see that you're growing and that you're becoming, larger, or you're having increased success as time goes on, there's a sense of comfort there, I think, from your customers to know that, hey, they must be doing well. They must be doing a good job. I'm at the right place. And so they did get excited about it. And I think everybody, not everybody, a lot of people like to see people win, that if they understand small business, that it's very risky. It's extremely grueling. We almost went out of business a couple of years after I bought the shop. We were down to our last few $1,000s, and at the beginning of January one year, which is not the time to be short on cash flow, and we had the best January we'd ever had. We only had a one January to base that off of, but it was a really good January compared to that one, and we were able to put some money in the bank and start building up our cash reserve again. So I think people understand how difficult it is, and they admire and respect when somebody is actually making progress. So that I started seeing the exponential traction of having a second location. I was able to attract more customers and more team members. And so I had a conversation with John Waffler and Dan Gilly at the time, and they had told me from experience, hey, if you go to 2 locations, you should plan to go to 3 locations, because most people never stay at 2 locations. There are some, but most people either go from 1 to 2 to 1, or they go from 1 to 2 to 3, and they may stay at 3 or they may move forward, but 2 locations is just twice as much work, because you don't have the ability to have a layer of middle management there as an area manager and work on some of the stuff that the business, it just so happens that running the business ends up being a full-time job at some point. So you need to have people there to work on keeping everything going, the processes, and working with the team members and whatnot, helping them solve problems, solving their issues for them as they're bringing up, challenges that they're faced with. So yeah, 2 businesses, just, I knew that I was going to go to 3. And then when I got to 3, I met Michael, and I was, trying to run 3 individual businesses. And Michael was pretty quick to point out that, hey, we need to run a single business here, not 3 individuals. And then helped me find my business partner, Bill, kind of a mutual friend or Michael was a mutual friend of Bill and mine. and so, Bill and I hit it off, and we both believed in the same things, had the same values and whatnot. And Bill helped me run it as a single business versus three separate ones. And then that's really when things started taking off, was just bringing all those components together and building a cohesive business versus multiplying, the work. We were able to multiply and scale the business versus just adding more and more tasks to our day.
You two together are a fantastic combination, because you were by defensiveness, I suppose, having to work in the business quite a bit. And then when Bill showed up, he was fully capable from a background of 30 store overview, right? He had a big background. When he sat down, he said, "Give it to me. I'll run it. You go out and work on the business, and I'll work in it." And you guys are a fabulous combination that way, because he's a machine running it from within, and you've done extraordinary things from the outside of your business, working in, from the outside. And it's been a powerful combination, you two, and that scale allowed you to do that, right? You two then scaled up, and then you could put talent around you, and the talent that would aspire for growth came to you, and the people who didn't want to grow left you, and you replaced them with people who wanted to grow, and it sort of takes on a life of its own. And right. And it'd be great if you would share a little bit about that life of its own, and the leaders that you can attract now versus the ones that left, that didn't want to be part of this, right? Because you guys recruit and hire in a different way than most folks do. What you and Bill do at the beginning is different than what most people do. It'd be awesome if you would just share a little bit of a snippet of that, about what you're able to do with what you've built.
I feel real fortunate that I was able to connect with somebody like Bill, that is extremely talented and wise, and shares the same values and principles that I do. The other part of that, though, is that kind of going back to what we were talking about, really putting that, defining that foundation of who are we as a business, and what are our values and our mission and our purpose. That's really what drew Bill to me, right? I mean, he had an offer to go work at the headquarters of Advanced Auto Parts, and he was ready to accept that offer, move to North Carolina. And
not to interrupt you, but that was my conversation with him. I said, wait, before you get on the plane, I got one more guy you need to talk to before you decide to fly out of town, right? And that was you guys getting together and connecting on your dreams or your visions together, right? Which I just want to throw that in there. He was 1 foot out the door on the way to Raleigh at that point. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'd say I'm fortunate on one side. There is a little bit of luck involved there, but those kind of people, I think, are around us. But if they're not attracted, or you don't have something to attract them to your business, then you will never know, right? They'll either not reveal themselves as a unicorn and open up, or you'll know they're a unicorn and be frustrated that they don't want to take a job. And truly, that's what you're trying to sell them, is a job versus a career and an opportunity, that you'll be frustrated that they're walking away and going somewhere else, attracted to something else. So with Bill coming on board, I did express my passion for leadership and to grow the company, and to run a business that we could look at and be very proud of, and all the principles that we wanted to build that business on. Our purpose is very simple. It's a little bit more defined on our purpose statement, but it's just about making other people's lives better. And if we can fix a car, or if we can help a team member, or be involved in the community, and just use our position and our skills as auto repair professionals to make other people's lives better, then the result is that we get rewarded with more profits. However, that just allows us gives us the power to grow our families, and to create the sort of legacy that we want to create in the end. I don't think anybody in the right frame of mind, meaning that is doing this for the right reasons or business for the right reasons, really, if they are, looks at it and says, hey, look, if I can manipulate people to do the right thing or help other people, then I can buy that Learjet, or that this is going to be one of those businesses where I'm going to be, a multi-billionaire, that sort of thing. I mean, is it possible? Maybe, but I think most people are just looking at it like, hey, if I do a solid business, I can earn a good living and, retire someday and put, my kids through school and live in a comfortable house. And that's where it comes back to, you really need to, once you define the higher purpose of working on cars, then a lot of that just, it takes care of itself, right? You don't have to say, how do I generate more sales? What's the sales program that, the sales training I need to put my advisors in, and, the technicians and whatnot. And you're trying to manage personalities and you just feel like you're, managing a 3-ring circus. So when it does come to finding that person that you're looking for, again, your biggest challenge is in your own mirror of saying, what kind of business am I passionate about, defining that business, and then finding those people that want to join in on that.
Yep. And the beauty of it is that when you get that team built and you guys are walking out the purpose and the character, that the loyal brand ambassador customers that are meaning based, they're chasing meaning to find you guys, and they come for auto repair and they leave with a meaning connection. Their motivation internally is to come back to you again because you're talking their language. And those are the people that will build these long-term covenant relationships that are really, the future profitability of the industry, is knowing how to serve that top-end client. And they come because of who you've demonstrated that you actually are. And it's just a super powerful, you're right, it takes care of itself in the end, right? Once you make that commitment, build the culture, get the rock stars, walk it out in real life, those customers come and they're sticky. They'll stay forever, right? And they're great customers.
So part of your question was, how do we hire? What's the process that we use to hire? And that is the process. Is we I kind of joke around with our managers because we do a little bit of a 2-step process where we'll interview at a higher level for that candidate, and then we will have the managers really look into the technical capacity of the candidate, and as we're developing our managers, we're developing them so that they can also hire for that higher, or interview for that higher level. But really what we try to do is just when we're interviewing for the character side of things, we're looking for, are these candidates, are they humble, are they hungry, and are they smart, emotionally smart, meaning that they work well with other people, and do they hold the values that we hold very high? And once we check those boxes, then we say, okay, now can you do the job that we're hiring you for? So in short, I just tell our managers, if they don't understand that process, that we're just trying to make sure that we don't get any psycho killers into the, trying to eliminate those murderers from our shop. And
but it's genius. It's genius because you and Bill spend your time making sure that the cultural fit is there, and that you're hiring champions, and these people are the real deal. And then when the time comes that they've passed that level of test, which it's a rarefied crowd that can join you at the level that you guys have chosen to live, then whether they can fix cars or sell at the front desk, lots of people can fix cars and sell at the front desk and don't fit your culture model. So it makes a lot of sense that that's where you guys put your time, is making sure you're hiring family. And it's very powerful.
And so I kind of say the axe murder tongue in cheek, but really they're not killing people, but they're killing the culture, right? I mean,
Killing
they
your
bring an
business.
axe in and they start swinging at your culture, and it destroys your culture. Um, and the beauty of when you hire based on values and principles and purpose and whatnot, when you have the conversation, like one of our principles or our values is teamwork, and an operating principle is to be on time, right? And the reason for that is your team is depending on you. I mean, I depend on, as a technician, I would depend on an advisor to be there to take care of the customer so that I have work to work on or cars to work on, right? And as an advisor, they're depending on you to show up so that when they're taking care of the customers, that they can give the customer what they came in for. So instead of saying, hey, the rules are that you got to be here ready to work at 8 o'clock, and if you don't follow those rules, we're going to let you go. The conversation is, hey, when we hired you, you expressed to me that you have a strong belief and you hold teamwork at a very high value. And what you're doing when you don't show up on time is you're letting your team down. So, is there something that's getting in the way of, I mean, if you've got, childcare duties and, things get hung up or whatnot, then that's understandable. But if somebody just isn't motivated to get to work on time and they just cannot, and it happens to all of us, right? Where it's this 23-year-old technician that for some reason can't make it to work before 8:15, no matter what you say. And even if you have these conversations and say, hey, look, you said you believe in teamwork, but you're violating that principle on a regular basis. So what is it? Is it that you don't believe in teamwork, or that, you do believe in teamwork, but you're just, violating your own personal value? And if that's the case, like, you should rethink, do you really believe in teamwork? And if you do, you should stay true to yourself on that. And the beauty of this is that I can tell you, just on that conversation alone, right? Just somebody that won't come into work or can't make it to work on time. And when you sit down and you talk to them and say, hey, look, this is all about teamwork, not a rule that if you break the rule, I'm the boss and you better do it or you're fired, right? But it's, hey, we're building a team here and you're letting us down. And I've got a responsibility to everybody else on the team to make sure that people are coming, that are also the people that are joining our team also hold those values very highly. So you've consistently demonstrated you can't make it to work before 8:15. You violated this over and over, and even though you realize you're violating it, like, do you really fit in here? I mean, what you tell me, is this really where you should be? Like, how, and sometimes, a lot of times, honestly, and those are different conversations based on whether they're violating different values. A lot of times they say, you know what, I really don't feel like this is where I need to be. And you just say, well, what are you going to do? And, well, I'm going to go find somewhere else to work. That's probably what I would suggest, right?
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation with people and they just self-eliminate, right? But it does give them the opportunity to leave on their own terms versus feeling like you unjustifiably fired them because of some arbitrary rule that really doesn't matter.
Well, and
right?
Brian, to use language Kent and I were talking about earlier today, you have set up a redemptive culture and you have redemptive conversations with people. And if they choose not to redeem, right, not to challenge themselves and say, hey, I'm living outside of my belief structure and I'm okay with that, I think I'll take that somewhere else, then they're in charge of their own remedial solution to that, right? As you say, they self-dismiss and you're like, well, can I help you? I'll give you a good work referral. I can't give you a good cultural referral, but I'll give you a good work referral. Can I help you? Right? And it's a completely different expectation set. You're not in contest with them anymore. You're not pushing them to show up on time. They start either doing it because it becomes important to them, or they decide they don't care, and then they pick it up and take it somewhere else.
We've had plenty of those conversations as well, right? Is, hey, do you realize you're violating this principle that you on the surface have told me that you hold very highly? and they go, you know what, I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. And I need to get my act together. And that also solves the problem when they look at it, and it's about running a principle values based organization versus a rules based positional organization that is very dictative, right? Hey, do it this way or get out.
Well, and that
Versus
very moment is very psychologically sticky, right? When somebody comes to a conclusion that you're helping them to become a better person, and they actually make that decision for themselves, they appreciate that from you, and they appreciate you, and that makes them stickier as an employee, right? They're less likely to pick up and go somewhere else. It's very powerful.
Who wouldn't want to work for somebody that is driving that? I mean, you're people first. One of the first things that made you kind of look at pursuing being better is that you were the obstacle. You changed your own perception first. And then you looked at, well, in order to take care of the people that I'm serving, they need more opportunity. And so the reason you bought another business was to serve others. I mean, your whole drive is to help people, and who wouldn't want to be a part of that? How attractive is that to work for somebody whose sole purpose is to serve you, to make you the best possible version of yourself?
right, and that's the fundamental concept of a servant leader, right? That's exactly what I want to be known for, is somebody that came in and helped other people and was interested in personally interested in their success, not interested in manipulating somebody for my personal success of building some account, a cash account or whatnot.
Well, and the beauty of it is they work harder for you, they produce more, they do it partially for themselves, partially to be part of a championship team, partially to make you proud of them, which is a beautiful relationship, and you end up getting more productivity out of them, right? The productivity follows this instead of chasing it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right? So you're building this legacy, right? You are actively building a lasting legacy. What elements are most important for you to leave, both personally and professionally, through your company?
Leave, like when I leave the industry?
Or the leave legacy. This earth, or whatever leaving looks like to you.
Let's start with leaving the industry. Or leaving the company. Maybe stay in the industry, right? Let's back it off at death a little bit, right? So
no. Bill does a good job at teaching a class the 5 levels of leadership, and one of the exercises at the end of that class is to write your own your own obituary, right? And it can be just a career obituary or whatever you want to, but it is, like what do you want people to say about you? And I always joke around that I've never heard an accountant give an obituary in my life, right? It's like, then pull out the net worth statement as well. He had these loans, but he also had this money in the bank, and well, we should all be so proud of Joe. He was worth $800,000 when he passed away, and there's the benefactors right there, Susie and Michael, or whatnot. But it's true, right? Is you want to turn around 5 years from now, or 10 or 20 or 30, and say, man, that was really cool what I did, and not have regrets. Know that you're going to make mistakes, but not regret. And to me, regretting is not trying, or not chasing or aiming for a noble purpose versus things, right? Or just some cash account. I think Sam Walton, he was on his deathbed, and somebody asked him his thoughts as he was terminally ill, and he said, I got it all wrong. I mean, here's a guy who's a billionaire, and he said, my wife doesn't like me, my daughter doesn't really know who I am, I don't know my daughter, and I'm one of the wealthiest people in the world. I messed up, and those are things that experiences that are cautionary tales, where you say, hey, what are the important things? Well, I want to be known as someone who was there, and that had a balanced involvement in my family, right? That I wasn't, so involved at being a part of their life that I'd neglected giving them, the security of, um, you know, a good education and, and living in a safe neighborhood and all those things that come with earning a good living, but not so much that, that pursuit that I'm known as the workaholic that, how proud are we of dad? We don't know who he is, but man, he worked his tail to the bone and look at all the things that we have as a result. So, um, I want to be known as a good, father and husband and grandfather, and my parents are still alive, so definitely, I think they would say I turned out pretty good as a son, and I spend a lot of time with them, which they um, appreciate more than anything. My career, I want to be known as somebody that helped people get where they wanted to go, that provided a place that they could really be proud of what they did for a living, that they could be proud of the organization that they worked for, and that they admired you know me as a as a person that stood for um, good values and principles, had cared probably more than people thought I should care about people in the company, and that's easy to say. There's times where I think to me, I know I'm probably in the right place when people are saying, yeah, you know what, that person doesn't deserve to be in this company, hasn't done something to like a capital A, that sin of they stole or they um devalued a customer or something like that, but just, yeah, you know what, they don't have their stuff together, um but Brian gave them more grace than they deserved. And I want to be known as somebody who probably expected more than other people thought was possible, right? And I think we probably earned that reputation for sure. Amongst a lot of people, is that 5 years ago they would have said, "Hey, it's not possible to do the sort of things that we've done in the last 5 years." And I'm sure they're saying some of that about the next 5 years, although we might have a little more credibility than we did 5 years ago.
Well,
And
three stores to 31 in a short period of time, it's quite a testimony. So, that's quite a legacy in the business you guys are building.
Do you find, oh, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, to your point about the number of stores, I think I would be disappointed if I had two stores and um, they weren't the sort of stores I could be proud of, versus, um, having 31 stores. To me, is it something you can be proud of? Because I do feel like there are, organizations or, individuals that are going out there and just saying, hey, look at all. I mean, it's like comparing belt buckles out at the rodeo. I mean,
we built scale. We built scale, but it was ugly. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, and it all boils down. When you look at those ugly stories, they always boil down to, how did it impact people? And the stories that people admire are the ones where, like, man, that company grew, and we had fun, or their employees had a good time, they earned a good living, they built something special that everybody admired and just were in awe about, based on all those the Christmas parties and the community involvements and the ability to help customers, how good their customer, their hospitality and their technical expertise, all those sorts of things, right? Those are the things where you look at it and you go, wow, man, that's a powerful organization, whether it's 3 stores or 50 stores, right? it could be 3 stores of, oh my gosh, that place is, I've heard that's a nightmare to work there. They're just abusive to their employees and all those ugly things. And so, um, again, to the point of our purpose and mission statement, the purpose is to make people's lives better, and the mission is to do it at the largest scale possible while still serving our purpose of making people's lives better. If at some point we're not making people's lives better, or we're doing, like the scale is tipped of, hey, we're probably making more lives worse than we are better, at that point it's a failure, right?
But
I
I'm gonna just recognize what you said. That's phenomenal. You're gonna do it right first, according to your definition of right, and then scale is multiplication on the back end. But if you can't multiply doing it right, you're not going to multiply, right? You have it in order in your soul, and which is beautiful.
I think that answered my question. I was going to ask, because I can see that there's probably some people out there that think, the only way that these people are able to scale and grow these platforms, these organizations as large, is because they took shortcuts, or they lied, or they cheated and did these things. How do you feel, or what are your thoughts on maintaining your values and principles as you scale? And I think you somewhat answered that, but I mean, what would you tell the people out there who might be skeptic about, well, I have to sell my soul in order to be able to attain something like this?
I would go back to, diving into your values, right? And really looking at this and saying the money and the growth is a result of doing the right thing. Doing the right thing doesn't result in, or making a bunch of money doesn't result in, now we can do the right thing. It, that has to come first. So, and people have to define what that is for them. I'm not saying that, hey, that purpose that I've defined for our company is the only true path. I've talked to a lot of business owners, and they've got a lot of different purposes. And again, when we start talking about talking to team members and saying, hey, do you really feel like you fit in here? It doesn't mean that that person is just a throwaway, and they'll never fit in anywhere. It's just, hey, you got to find a place where you fit in, that they believe in, that gives you passion, and that you get energy to make it to work at 8 o'clock or whatnot. I had a technician, a shop foreman years ago, and he said he was going to leave me because he wanted to go work for another company that were the technicians were extremely competitive, and basically to the point of being cutthroat. But that was where he thrived. He just loved the competition of, hey, I want to work by myself. I don't want to have lateral support to be there for my fellow technician. I just want to bring my cars in, do my work, and show everybody that I'm the best. And he called it a shark tank, right? He said, hey, look, that place is a shark tank. And this whole, like, me helping other people out and being a shop foreman just is really taking a lot of my time, and it's really like I'm not happy.
Having listened to your value and your purpose and everything you've talked about, throughout this podcast, it's now glaringly obvious of like how selfish of a mentality that is once you have that perspective to say, well, he just wanted to care about himself and no one else. And obviously that person is going to work themselves out of your organization because you are so driven on helping others. And that takes, relationships, that takes connection, that takes effort for someone else's benefit, which is almost the exact opposite of
and the team,
it's completely selfless.
The team will help you purge too, right? I mean, once you get a team of people who are working as a team, and some lone stars over there, star or not, they're not going to put up with that for very long. They're either going to expect them to step into the team and contribute, or the team's going to start to push them out the front door. So
or they'll attract other people that are cutthroat, right? I mean, those are the only people that will stick around. And and we knew it was going to be painful, but when he explained it to me that way, I thought, I'm going to lose a lot of money, but I'm not going to talk this guy out of leaving. That's the last thing I can't make an argument to him that was going to get him to stay, because the only argument would be, hey, look, let's change the culture of this company and I'll get technicians next to you that are competitive as well, and let's just see you guys fight over the work and cut each other's throats.
Well, and you're right. The alternative is they stay, and then they're kind of a cancer, and then you don't deal with them, and other people can't figure out why you don't deal with them, and then now there's a cultural problem because you believe in teamwork, but you're not building teamwork, and you're letting this star sit in the corner and be difficult, and this toxic thing forms, and we talk about a little bit like cancer in the body, and it's like, are you better off letting the cancer remove itself or cutting it out and sending that terribly painful high performer, right? And it's like watching the money walk out the front door. But what you replace them with is somebody who fits, and the team tightens up and helps each other more, and they more than replace themselves. It's just hard to watch that high producer walk out the front door and wish you could change it. It's like, there goes the money in the short run, right?
If you've been in this industry long enough, you've had, and this guy really wasn't a prima donna. I mean, he really tried to do this. He just came to the realization that he was trying to be somebody who he wasn't, and he needed to go work somewhere else, and I agreed with him. And I still see, I saw him probably a couple of weeks ago at a party that was being held by a friend of mine that worked on our team, and invited me to his birthday party. But still, I mean, I still like the guy. He isn't a fit, right? I mean, he's a great technician, and he was trying to be somebody that he wasn't. He didn't become toxic, anything like that. It was just one of those things where I just looked at it and said, man, these guys are hard to find, and this is going to hurt. But at any rate, that's, I think, when you look at people, back to your point, Michael, when you said, hey, look, we're not going to give you a character reference, but we will give you a reference when somebody leaves the team. I mean, somebody, so if he was asking for a reference to a company that said, hey, we hire sharks, I'd be like, man, this guy is
perfect.
Who you need. He's going to fit.
He's a great white. He's going to fit right in.
And it's not to disparage him in any sense, like I said, selfish, but really if you've got two purposes or two, directional ideologies, and you're starting to split those, I mean, that's going to cause friction in where you're going. And really what you're looking for is that unification of purpose, right? Not to say that his purpose is bad or negative or anything, because I could see good businesses being built off of that. Well, we are competitive at being the best, and that's what it looks like, right?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the first times I listened to Mike speak. He talked about the Evergreen study in Harvard, and it's the Evergreen study, right?
Yeah, the Evergreen Project, Evergreen study, absolutely. Yep.
Yep, and they talked about alignment, principle alignment, and that if the people on your team are not aligned with your values, then they're not a good fit. And when you truly get that synergy, it's when people align with your values, and then you start building this culture that's based on those values and principles and purpose and whatnot. And that's really where you start picking up momentum. And again, it just that was probably at that phase of my business when I needed to go from 3 and beyond stores, that was a defining moment for me, was realizing that, hey, I'm hiring people based on their technical ability, and they're coming in, and it's completely dysfunctional because they don't all believe the same values. And I was just running around putting fires out, and dealing with Michael said I would go in and try to fix something and leave, and somebody was undermining me in a conversation by the water cooler. And I mean, that sort of stuff is very destructive. It's triangulation. I mean, I know a lot more now than I did back then, and I can recognize it very quickly now and just say, hey, this person needs to understand what they're doing is destructive. And when they understand that, if they continue to do it, that person is gone. I don't care if that's our lead technician at the shop or not. We have hired people based on gossip, and good technicians too, but we refuse to let technicians of any level come in and divide our team by gossiping and talking smack about other people. We let them know. We give them more warnings than we probably should, But in the end, if they're just hell bent on gossiping and disparaging other team members or myself or, leadership or the company in general, then, hey, let me give you a reference to our competition. You can go do that there.
As I've heard you say, you promote them to customers. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Release them to the industry. So.
I love that. I'd love to kind of step into somewhat of a lightning round here. Okay. This has been a phenomenal conversation, but I want to jump into a lightning round. All right. Just a few questions and we'll dive into those. First question, what's a piece of advice that you once received that you now find invaluable?
Invaluable. I would like to give two pieces of advice. One was when I was in high school, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I interviewed as part of a class kind of, career day project. We spent a day with a professional that we, aspired to be. And I asked our local veterinarian who we'd been bringing our animals to for years, so it kind of, formed a relationship with him, some questions. And one of, I forget the question that I asked, but one of his answers was, you need to learn to love learning. And he just, and that has always stuck with me, that, and I feel like the flip side of that he was cautioning me against was, don't become complacent and stop growing, and stop learning, that you will reach a high level of success if you really enjoy learning, not just do it because it's a chore, but just really love the whole idea of learning. And and I try to, the other day I was at the grocery store and I saw a pomegranate, and I'm like I've never bought a pomegranate before. What the heck is, how do you eat a pomegranate? I don't know. And so I took it home, and I couldn't really find any good answers on YouTube, or I just cut it and I threw it in a juicer and it tasted terrible. And I realized that it's just the seeds, right? It's like nobody eats the pomegranate. They just eat the seeds. And when I figured that out, I was like, oh, they're pretty good. I don't know if they're worth the effort of digging them out, but they're pretty good once you get them separated. But those are the sort of things, just small things all the way to like how do we're sponsored by investors in a larger group that we formed with 5 other businesses that came out of the institute, and or 4 others rather. But how do we operate and grow this to a I've read books about growing the business to $1 billion a year business, and it's possible. We could. We're certainly in those sort of circles that can help us grow to where we could be, a $1 billion a year business. So to me, that's the first piece of advice is, no matter where I've been, I've always just known that there's something else to learn, and I want to learn it, and have fun at it. Like the pomegranate thing was a kind of a pain in the butt, and it made a big mess, but it was just fun learning about pomegranates, right? And then the second set of advice was, when I was getting my degree, I had not yet committed to the fact that I was going to be in the automotive industry for my career. And I was talking to my mentor at the dealership. His name was Chuck, and he's from Texas, and he'd had a very interesting career. He had worked on cars as a young man, and then then went into the business of selling satellites, when the satellites in the 80s used to be these huge, dishes that took up, a quarter of your yard in the backyard. And then he did some other things here and there, but he kept getting pulled back into the automotive industry, and then just found a passion for it eventually. And he said, as I was talking about some of the options that I could do as I was getting close to getting my degree, he said, excuse me, he said, Brian, let me give you some advice. You're a car guy. You'll always be a car guy. And the sooner that you accept that, the more successful you will be. If you try to get out of this industry, you'll realize that this industry has a lot more opportunity than most anything you'll find outside of this industry. And you're very talented in this industry. So save yourself the trouble and put your head down and make the most of this opportunity, and it'll treat you well. And he was right. I think that the automotive industry it's always just been a solid industry with tons of opportunity, and something that I think a lot of people look at all of the pain that can come out of this industry, and it can cloud the opportunity and um, the good things that are in this industry that you can't find anywhere else, or if you do, it might come with a lot of baggage that really drowns it out as well. So those are the two bits of advice.
Great
Kind
advice.
of making the most out of the opportunity that's already there right in front of you, right? Make your own grass green. Picking your purpose. Yeah.
Well, and there's the saying, right? The grass is green where you water it. And so, and no matter where you go, there you are. That the challenges are usually in the mirror, right? The reason you're probably not happy is because the person in the mirror. It's not because of your situation or lack of opportunity, or opportunity to do something that you have passion over or whatnot. It's just like the way you're looking at things or the way you're approaching things. That's where your frustration is born from, those areas. Not because I'm going to say this, you may or may not leave it in your podcast, but I read a book, and there's this this quote that I read, and I memorized it because it was like, man, that's just sums up so much. But it was written, I think, in the late 1800s by an English guy, and he said, the fountain of content must spring from within, because he who hath such little knowledge of human natures to try to change anyone's disposition other than his own will end his life in fruitless efforts and multiply that which he proposes to remove. And it's like,
Absolutely.
it's such a powerful quote.
It's
I read it in that book,
Yep.
and I was just like, man, I've got to memorize that, because it's so true. You can't go around trying to change other people, and that happiness comes from inside. It doesn't come from everything outside. It comes from within you, and it's about your perspective and how you view things, and seeing the glass is half full, and deciding that you're going to be positive, and that you're going to bring energy and be in a fountain, not a drain. All those things, right? And if you try to go around by finding happiness by changing other people, all you're going to do is make things worse and end your life, waste your life, and make things worse, right? So anyways, that's one of my favorite quotes.
I love that. And learn to love learning. I wrote from pomegranates to private equity. Second lightning round question, lightning round.
I don't know if I'm making it lightning for you. Probably crock pot round.
How do you define success today, and how has that definition shifted over time?
Wow. We, Michael and I, as we were working on changing our culture, I read a book, and this guy is saying, or he had asserted something in the book, that everybody goes through phases in their life. And there's three main phases, and that is survival, success, and significance. And I think in each one of those phases, there's a success, right? There's a defining or definition of success. So when I first started my business, the success was I'm surviving, right? And that I was proud of that, right? I mean, but if I had gone 20 years and people said, "Hey, how are you doing in business?" Well, we survived another year. Um, I wouldn't define that as success, but in that first phase, those first 2 or 3 years, survival was a level of success. And then success, right? That's the, hey, we're growing, we're making good, revenue, able to buy, a nicer car than I had before, take some nice vacations, that sort of thing, able to employ, people and give them opportunity and help customers. And we're known as the one of the top shops in the area to bring your vehicle. I mean, we're gaining that reputation. So all of those things defining success as a small business. And it was like, wow, man, this is great. So when we achieved that, that was to me that was success. I would define that as success. And um, now, we're in this significance phase where we say, okay, we obviously know how to survive and we know how to be successful, and you can't just disregard those two things and say, hey, we're going to now move into significance. They just, they're at odds with each other for one, but you have to build upon. You can't just, walk through and then discard that phase as you're going through. So at any rate, knowing that we're very successful and we know how a successful business should run, and maintaining that success, and then also moving into using that success as a way to be significant in a lot of aspects of the industry and in the community and my personal life and professional life and friends and just that whole wheel of life. That's really how I would define success moving forward, right? And at some point, everybody exits their career either horizontally or vertically. I'm hoping vertically is how I exit. But when we get through, or I get through to the point where I say, hey, um, I was successful in this significant phase, I feel like it'll be that I was able to develop people to run the business and to have the opportunity to run that the business, whatever phase it's in, when I decide to walk away, and that the business continues on, and that um, there's a tempered um, emotion that comes out of it. One of not, I don't want an emotion of thank God that old fart finally moved on, right? Just he should have moved on years ago. But I don't want people to go, oh my gosh, how are we going to survive without him, right? I want that level of success to be, man, he accomplished a lot of great things and did so much and prepared us and gave us so much, opportunity to grow and to learn and to be successful in this industry. And I want to accomplish those sorts of things, and not these exact same things, but those sorts of things in my career that I can look back on and say, well, I'm really proud of that, and that people will say that he did a good job in this industry and added a lot of value to it. So that's I mean, when I look at legacy and success, to me it has somewhat of that feel, right? I mean, as I'm going through it, starts um, forming and shape, becoming a certain shape and color and light as the more I go into my career. I always look at my life or my career, whatever, as this blank canvas, and you know Bob Ross used to be that guy on PBS that had the big hair, and my mom loved to
Happy
paint.
little picture. Right.
Yeah, and he would make a mistake. It's like, oh, there's a happy little mistake, and then all of a sudden it's like, holy cow, man, that like it looks like he meant to put it in there, even though he's oops, and who knows if he did it on accident or did it on purpose, trying to make it look like an accident. But there's a lot of accidents that I've made in my life that I look back on as like, man, I'm glad I made that accident. That just paints a that's that rock that's that looked like initially, boy, that's a mistake. Oops, didn't it was supposed to be a bush, and um, I didn't do it right. Now it looks like a rock, and now you build this painting around there, and then you look at the finished painting, you go, man, that mistake, looks like it was meant to be, right? So
Well, I'll say
those are
if you let me speak just for a second into your significance comment, you as long as I've known you have been focused on deriving meaning and putting meaning in front of what you're doing and bringing people along with you. And I'll say at 100 employees, I'm going to guess that if they're all reasonably stable and you don't have any more of those cowboys or cowgirls out there trying to do their own thing, that's 101 multiplication of what you've got in your hand now of leaders and team members who are meaning driven. They're focused on significance in the work that they do and the contribution that you guys make to your customers and to your communities. And that multiplication model is profound, right? It's not just about success, taking home a paycheck, or survival. Whew, we survived another day, right? You guys are in a different level than most businesses, period. And in our industry, it's an extraordinary level. And you're multiplying. The bigger you guys get, the more people you bring with you that fit that, the more they're empowered to walk out. Whether you go out, I hope you go out vertical, or vertical. I want to go out that way too, right? Let's go out and do something on the backside together. But when you're out of it and those people are still in it, and they're still making a contribution, that they're not making a survival contribution anymore. They're not making a success. They're in the meaning zone. They're in the significant zone, and you got 100 and 150 or more people out there spreading meaning in the world. And that's really a profound legacy that we're talking about here. That's a huge contribution that you guys have made, and what's important to you. I didn't want that to go by without really telling you how powerful I think that is. So
it's extremely powerful. And I think if anybody, if people were to take one thing out of this podcast, I would say if you're looking for the secret, that's a huge part of it. If it's not the secret, it's a huge part of it. The power of saying, hey, it's not about money, it's about what the money represents. The money represents what we're doing, and the more we do the right thing, the more people pay us to do it, right? They patronize our business, they support us, and they buy more from us, which allows us to continue to grow. Whereas I hear, like, we hired a gal. She's actually, it's interesting. We were looking at the recruiting component, and we decided, rather than hire a recruiter to bring more people in, let's look at where the holes are in our bucket, and let's seal those up and make it, as stable a bucket as possible, meaning that instead of seeing our bucket and saying we've got a lot of holes in the bucket and we're leaking water, everybody has turnover in their company, right? I feel like our turnover is pretty low, but I still feel like, hey, we could do a better job. There's people that, have probably left, or that, we've parted ways with, that probably it was because of what we were doing, not or our environment, or something that we weren't doing was the reason why they left. And so we hired what we labeled our team development manager, and that person comes in and has career discussions with our team members, make sure that they're onboarded properly, they understand all the purpose of the business, and all those things that right now it's becoming difficult for us to really make sure that there's a solid foundation there. So as we saw that starting to kind of wobble, we said, hey, we need to hire somebody who's dedicated. It means so much that we dedicated somebody to say, this is where what the company stands for, make sure that they understand the values and that they align with those values. And now, where do you want to go in this career? Where do you want to go in this company? Let's bring our training resources, everything into to you, so that you can grow as a person in a profession, and what roadblocks are in your way, and giving the feedback to those managers, those leaders that are there to serve and to remove roadblocks so that people can perform at their highest level. So at any rate, the the idea that we're chasing money, the person that we hired said that they left a company because they were they were focused on making money. They were moving towards a very sales organized or sales centric culture instead of a people culture. And um, and we agree with the philosophy that we're in the hospitality industry, right? And that's not just hospitality for our customers, but also for people on the team. And what hospitality means is just that experience, that full experience, not just the transaction. Like, you can go to Motel 6 and get a bed and a shower and all those things, right? Or you can go to the Ritz Carlton or the Four Seasons. There's a super big difference in the price that you will pay, but people pay it for the experience, the hospitality. And not that we're looking to blow people away and overdo it with our hospitality, but we also want to know that, hey, look, the hospitality is extremely important. And so for us, and I think as you grow, any business grows more and more. If you start really focusing on those numbers, then um, you will have people that will become discouraged about that and say, hey, look, this is all about the money. All they care about is the money. And if you let that creep into your business, you're in for trouble, because the people that stay know, they will have decided that the way to get recognized in this company is to make more money for the company and generate revenue. And so we constantly, I don't think you can say it enough. It's like saying, I love you in a marriage. You don't just say, hey, I love you, when you get married, and then say, if anything changes, I'll let you know. Like, just
Once a
know
year
that,
on your anniversary, one more time, right?
But it's the same thing about the revenue. Is the revenue is a representation of the experience that the customer has, and part of that experience is connecting with the customer and understanding them and having them feel like they're cared for, and they're not just a number, and you're not just targeting their wallet, you're targeting their needs as a customer and serving them. So when we celebrate a record month, or a great day, or any sort of achievement or whatnot, we always recognize the behavior that goes into that, right? It's like, hey, this is a result. The stats here, the score at the end of a football game is representative of how they played the game. And we're not, when teams take the field, they know they have to put points on the board in order to score, but they also know how they have to come together as a team and the actions that it takes in order to score those points. Otherwise, they'd be going to the hardware store to get a ladder to climb up to the scoreboard to start, putting points on the board, right? And so it's not about putting points on the board; it's what those points represent, and that's the thing that makes people admire games and admire the people that win at those games, is what it takes, the work and the effort that it takes to win that game. So at any rate, again, if people take anything away from this podcast, I hope they realize that that's the key, right? Is the power of having that purpose and understanding that this is the reason why we're in business, and it's something more noble than fixing cars and being the best repair shop in town. I mean, it should be something that inspires. The higher level that you develop that purpose and create it and reinforce it and bring other people onto your crusade, then the higher level people you get. You don't get the people that are like, hey, I just want to be the best and I want to work in a Shark Tank, and we're going to be the best shop and I'm going to be the best person in the best shop. You want to be, hey, and if that's what you want, then that's fine. But for us, that purpose of, making other people's lives better and growing our influence and growing the company based on doing that at, a larger and larger level is something that has been really fun for us.
Well, I'll tell you, your walk and talk and testimony is that you guys are building a skyscraper, and you're going to have 31 floors on it here soon, and there's more in the pipeline behind that, right, as an idea. And every rock star you bring in is another iron steel pillar that you put in the ground at the foundation, and the fact that you've doubled down on your investment by having the focus be their intake and their cultural alignment and their development and the strengthening of them. It's almost like you're getting these giant rock star pillars, and then you're embedding them deep in concrete. And the stronger your foundation comes of this stuff, the more floors you can put on it, the more floors you can put on it. And it's, I mean, you're investing in what you believe in, and it's a beautiful thing to watch it succeed and grow and get stronger and taller and higher. And it's impressive indeed. You can see it from a long way away at this point. A lot of people watching you. So congratulations, you guys are killing it.
Yeah. Brian, this has been such a fulfilling conversation. Just jam-packed with value. You kind of answered my final question, which is what message would you leave for somebody who is pursuing to do what you are doing? And I think, I wrote down here, do what inspires. I think that's something you said. And I think that speaks to everything that you've discussed today. And I truly want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this with just me. On a personal level, I've got a lot out of this, and definitely spoken to some parts of myself. So I thank you very much for that.
I love sharing and helping people, but I also think that gives me the or at least opens the door to learn from other people. And the one thing that I always loved about going to the peer groups, the gear groups that you guys have, is just getting with other owners and just knowing that it could be the guy that opened his shop 2 weeks ago or the guy that has been running a shop for 40 years. But I was going to learn something from somebody, right? And I just always learned, well, I hadn't always learned, but through my experience, I learned that you just don't discount anybody that has anything to say or whatnot, because everybody's has their own experience. And whether they're running a John Deere shop out in the middle of, Kansas, or they're running some, high Euro shop in the middle of San Francisco, there's something that they know that will help you in your business, right? I mean, if they're successful in business, it's not because they don't know what they're doing. They've figured something out that probably will help me to bring value to the people that are working in our stores, right? So it's I don't know. Like I said, that's the passion that I developed with just business, and it doesn't matter whether you're running a plumbing business or medical supply business or whatnot. It's all about leadership and really serving other people through those principles, because everything rises and falls in leadership. I mean, you can see it time and time again where you go into a location that's struggling and this place lacks leadership, or you go into a place that is struggling and then you put the right leader in there and it just takes off almost on day one, and you go, yeah, that's the power of leadership, right? So
well, Brian, thank you so much for the time. Those of you who have been listening, again, if you have any questions or comments about the stuff we covered today, if you'd like to learn more, again, comments below, and you can find more information at wearetheinstitute.com. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
From president of EAS Tire and Auto. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure's been mine. Thank you guys for having me on.
Take care, my friend. Yep.
All right, you too.